Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Ralph Eisler.
And I'm Jonas Holdeman. And we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and for people committed to a life rooted in science and free of supernatural beliefs.
Yeah, and today's show topic is Halloween, of course.
Also known as All Hallows Eve.
But first we want to tell you a little bit about our sponsors. The Atheist Society of Knoxville frequently has a fun meetup at a bar or eatery. Tonight's meetup is at Barley's in the Old City starting at 5:30. Book for the silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table. And as Matt Dillahunty says, everyone is welcome to our happy hour for food, drink, and conversation. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't.
The Rationalists of East Tennessee have several regular monthly meetings. The first and third Sunday mornings in each month are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussions. The second Sunday, we hold a book club discussion, and the fourth Sunday is usually a get-together that we call Reflections, a meeting that features a potluck lunch in someone's home. Visit our websites for additional details, including time and location.
Yes. Okay, well, let's go on. We have at least one item in the news here today that we thought it was worth talking about. We reported some weeks ago in the news from Saudi Arabia that for the third time, women were organizing a driving day in defiance of and a challenge to the male-dominated patriarchal culture of that country. It prohibits women from driving. One of the few, I think, in the Mideast that actually still does.
Driving while female is not permitted by law, but because the government will not issue driver's licenses to women, it is not legally possible. Once the demands, one demands the one online petition at the website October 26th driving.com, all one word, October26driving.com, and this was for licensing to become available.
Yeah.
Previously, the entire online petition could be found in English on the website October26driving.com. That is, unless you're in Saudi Arabia. There it is blocked.
Yeah. But now the petition is available to anyone as the site has been hacked. Here's what it looks like now. World Times reporter Courtney Subramanian wrote online that at least 16 Saudi women were fined Saturday during a protest against the nation's law banning women from driving. She reports that protesters and their male guardians were forced to sign a pledge to respect the kingdom's laws. The defacing of the October26driving.com website mentions the three letters KSA, which we are told by an Arabic speaker probably means Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
A principal activist in this movement seems to be Manal al-Sharif, who even presented a TED talk on the subject. She outlined how she and her family were called bad people because they wanted to drive her car, and her son was bullied at school. She and her family, her brother and his family, have left the country due to fallout from her challenge to the rules made by religious men to control women there.
Okay, well, we wish you well and drive safe, ladies.
Okay, enough. Enough of the news, Ralph.
Yeah. So we get on with the main topic now, which is our Halloween program here. Halloween's nearly upon us, and the young pretend ghosts and pretend goblins will be ringing your doorbell. And unless their parents are so wrapped up in their own pretend story that they cannot make room for another, they will be there with them. Off and on, there's been kind of war against Halloween, as some conservative Christians think it's a sort of holiday for Jehovah's rival, Satan, the devil.
From Wikipedia, we learned Halloween is a contraction of All Hallows Evening, also known as All Hallows Eve, and it's a yearly celebration observed in a number of countries on October 31st, the eve of the Western Christian feast of All Hallows Day. It initiates the Triduum of Hallowmas, the time in the liturgical year dedicated to remembering the dead, including the saints, or hallows, martyrs, and all faithful departed believers. According to many scholars, All Hallows Eve is a Christianized feast initially influenced by the Celtic harvest festivals with possible pagan roots, particularly the Gaelic Samhain. Typical festive Halloween activities include trick-or-treating, attending costume parties, decorating, carving pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns, lighting bonfires, apple bobbing, visiting spooky attractions, playing pranks, telling stories, and watching horror films.
Yeah, among other things, I guess. Popular culture embellishes these every year with perpetual remakes of movies, such as Halloween. It's on its 10th version, directed by, get this, Rob Zombie. I don't know if that's real or
Even this June saw the release of the Brad Pitt film World War Z with zombies.
What's this? Oh, hey, what's going on here?
What are you doing here? This is Freethought Forum. You can't just barge in. We're on the air. First pirates, and now this. Williams, can't you guys keep the door locked? Oh, it is.
Brains, we've come
What
for
are
your
you doing here?
brains.
We'll come for your brains.
Wow. See here, we're still using our brains to investigate Halloween. The traditions of trick-or-treating, ghosts, witches, and zombies.
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 I told you the old one said zombies.
Uh,
Why did you say zombies?
Well, it is one of the subjects of this show.
Well, is this ever an interview show?
well, sometimes, but today we were.
Would you and your friends like to be interviewed? Please sit down.
I'm okay with that.
Sure, why not?
All right, but I'm still hungry.
Oh, well,
Will there be brains left over?
well, sit down, have a seat, anyhow. We were going to talk about ghosts and undead sorts of things, maybe the history of human ideas.
So please have a seat. So what brings you here today?
We're going to be the mum.
Are you going to talk to us about Sumer?
Oh, then.
Yes. So,
Somebody have experience?
well, I was, after my death experience, I was going to heaven. And on my way up there, I met these two guys. And then we made a pledge to each other that on Halloween 2013, we're going to come back and share our experiences.
Oh, well, let's see what you know. Let's go over a little bit about some history. According to Mesopotamian beliefs, the gods had made humans of clay, and to the clay had been added flesh and blood of a god slaughtered for the occasion. You might have seen that echoed in the opening scenes of the recent Ridley Scott movie Prometheus.
Yeah.
Yeah. To Sumerians, humans
I didn't like that film.
Well, I figure zombies wouldn't. To Sumerians, humans were created to serve the gods, to carry the yoke and labor for them. The Sumerians did not even have much of a reward for this life of labor for the gods in an afterlife.
There's not many brains in Prometheus.
You see, in the Gilgamesh epic, aging folk hero, haunted by the prospect of his own death, sets off to visit Utnapishtim, who had survived the Great Flood with his wife and were the only people to have achieved immortality. On the way, he meets Siduri, the tavern keeper at the eastern end of the Cave of the Sun. She is terrified by his homeless, rough appearance, but after hearing his story, offers him some of the best advice from antiquity. She asks, "Why are your cheeks emaciated, your expression desolate? Why is your heart so wretched, your features so haggard? Why is there such sadness deep within you? Why do you look like one who has been traveling a long distance?" He says to her, "Enkidu, whom I love deeply, who went through every hardship with me, the fate of mankind has overtaken him. I begin to fear death, and so roam the wilderness. The issue of my friend oppresses me. So I have been roaming long trails through the wilderness. How can I stay silent? How can I be still? My friend whom I love has turned to clay.
Well, that's not very good for somebody you love, I guess. But anyhow, she offers him pretty good advice. She says to him, Gilgamesh, whither are you wandering? Life which you look for you will never find. For when the gods created man, they let death be his share, and life withheld in their own hands. Gilgamesh, fill your belly day and night, make merry. Let the days be full of joy, dance and make music day and night, and wear fresh clothes, and wash your head and bathe. Look at that child that is holding your hand, and let your wife delight in your embrace. These things alone are the concern of men. Death was conceived of in terms of appalling grimness, dwelling in Kurnugia, unrelieved by any hope of salvation through human effort or divine compassion. The dead were, in fact, among the most dreaded beings in early Mesopotamian demonology.
You know, I visited Kurnugia. I sure did not want to stay there, though. In a belief called the descent of Ishtar to the underworld, the fertility goddess decides to visit Kurnugia, and the land of no return, where the dead live in darkness, eat clay, and are clothed like birds with wings. It was just like that. I had only feathers and mud to eat. Yuck. I had to get out of there as fast as I could.
But you're here. How did you get out? How did you return from the land of no return?
Well, it's kind of the same way I just kind of disappeared out of other lands. That wasn't my first go, but I was like that spoiled child, the spoiled child like Ishtar. Even the human records show that she was always threatening to let out of the residents of that place. When she wanted to visit the afterlife, probably to check up on an older lover or something, Ishtar threatens the doorkeeper. If thou dost not, or openest not, if thou openest not that I may enter, I will smash the doorpost and unhinge the gate. I will lead up the dead, that they may eat the living. Brains.
Yes. Ishtar was a pretty grim old woman, I think. Anyhow, in another story, after the great heroes Gilgamesh and Enkidu killed the monster Humbaba, she conceived a lust for Gilgamesh, who rebuked her as self-indulgent and treacherous. Ishtar spoke to her father Anu, saying, Father, give me the bull of heaven, so he can kill Gilgamesh in his dwelling. If you do not give me the bull of heaven, I will knock down the gates of the netherworld. I will smash the doorposts and leave the doors flat down. And I will let the dead go up and eat the living, and the dead will outnumber the living. And it looks like we have some of the dead here that are outnumbering the living, at least on this panel.
It's not quite the way it was planned, but it was like, sure enough, during one of her temper tantrums, she smashed the post, and once the door was flat, I was out of there. I think the whole place emptied out.
What was your experience there?
Well, I was Roman, and so we have a similar view of the afterworld, except it had some good points. If you were an exemplary citizen, usually a man, then you would be able to visit what were called the Elysian Fields. And the Elysian Fields were filled with sunshine and beautiful vistas, and essentially the afterlife was very much like being alive. But most people didn't actually get a chance to go to the Elysian Fields. They were only if you were really, really good. Generally,
do-gooders.
Yeah, you know. Obviously, I was not one of those people. I was rebellious against the gods, setting up a kind of a trend for myself through many incarnations. And so I had to go to Tartarus, which it wasn't a permanent place, but first, when I died initially, of course, you have to be properly prepared in ancient cultures, you could take it with you. And in fact, if you didn't take it with you, you couldn't get in. So I was buried with my coin in my mouth so that I could pay to be ferried across the river Styx by the boatman, Charon.
Charon, I've met Charon.
Yeah, he's a terrible, terrible boatman. I mean, it's
Bad breath.
Oh, it's horrible, horrible. His sense of direction is not good, but he wants his money.
Good thing he
way.
only has to go one way, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah, generally. So, and he gets there eventually, but it's a rough trip. There's a lot of seasickness going on. It's not pretty. It's really not pretty.
Sounds like not many brains in this afterlife.
No, there's not a whole lot of brains involved, but yeah. So when you get across the river Styx, you're judged. And you're sent to, it's a little like central processing anywhere you deal with a bureaucracy. The people who are really good, like I said, these, do-gooders, they're sent pretty much to the Elysian Fields right away. But the rest of us, maybe you were a little uppity, and maybe you were really, really bad. If you were really, really bad, like when the gods had to defeat the Titans, they locked them up basically in prison, and that's Tartarus. And if you're really, really bad, like I said, like the Titans, then you get to stay in Tartarus forever. But generally, most humans don't. It's kind of it's like prison. You pay your debt to society, and then when you've done your time, a couple of 100 years, depending on what you did, then you can be let into the fields of asphodel. But it's not the nicest place. It's nothing nice like, the Elysian Fields. This fields of asphodel is filled with these gray flowers, and it's just kind of gray all the time. And the flowers pretty much taste like ash, and you're a washed out version of a human being, and they encourage you to drink the rivers of Lethe, which makes you forget your memories. And I'm not really a river drinker, so I declined to do that, which is why I decided not to stay. The fields of asphodel, the flowers are terrible.
Well, if you make yourself useful, you can get out like the Titans did. Zeus is, release the Kraken and all that good stuff. Yeah,
it depends.
Yeah.
But, I'm not important enough for the gods to really notice me that much. So I just, the gates of Hades are actually guarded by Cerberus, the three-headed dog. And when you come in, of course, it's all, wagging of the tail and happy to see you and let's play fetch, because that's not his job. Letting people in is no problem. He's only supposed to get rowdy when people try to get out. So, I've always been good with dogs, so we played a little fetch. I grabbed a few humoruses, things like that. People who aren't buried with the proper protocols, who, maybe don't remember to bring their coin. Their relatives let them down and bury them without a coin, or they aren't properly buried. They're just laying around decomposing. So I grabbed a humorous and we played fetch for a little while, and I snuck out the back door basically. So but
the rules, there's a lot of complications.
It is. So, but there's all kinds of different ancient cultures, and mostly they had a lot of the same idea that you had to take it with you. I think the Egyptians did that probably the best of anybody. So, I think you might know something about that. I believe that's where you're all wrapped up, isn't it?
Yep, that's how I got mummified. So, let me introduce you a little bit of myself. I had two backgrounds. So I'm an Egyptian, so I was born and raised in the land of the pharaohs, an ancient civilization which pioneered engineering and chemistry and medicine, and also religion. They were obsessed with religion and afterlife. So with the spread of Christianity in Egypt and the merge of many beliefs with the ancient Egyptian beliefs, followed by Islam, which since the majority of Egyptians adopted, everyone left the pagan religion of their ancestor, and now the majority are Muslim, which I was once myself. till 2012, I decided to leave Islam, and then some guy decided to behead me because I left Islam. So
That's a bad deal.
it is. It is.
That's rough.
So the reason why I got mummified, though, I had it in my will that I want to be mummified. Let me explain to you why I wanted to be mummified. In Islam, in the afterlife, for you to go to afterlife, first you have to die. You have to, once you die, you go in the ground and your body rots. And then your soul, which is called ruh, basically leave your body and then stay in a place called the barzakh, where it stay there till basically an angel with a big horn gives a signal that all the bodies need to rise again from the dead, and it's time for the judgment day. Whereas in ancient Egyptians, it is different concept, where they believed that there was two parts of the soul, one called Ka and one called Ba. So Ba can leave, basically once you die, it leaves your body, it goes in the morning, wander around, and then at night it comes back to the tomb, close to the body of the deceased. The Ka stays beside the body all the time, where it nourish and eat on the food that they left in the tomb. So for ancient Egyptian, preserving the body is the only way for the Ka and the Ba to unite again, to become once more. And actually they had to write the name of the deceased person, and that's why they used what's called the cartouche or khartouche, which basically had the name of the deceased, so that when the Ba come back, it can find the deceased and be able to unite again. But if anyone have a question and they want to call us, feel free.
That's right.
Yeah, we're zombies. We need some brains.
I'm so glad that I bumped into you guys. I've been, ever since the Buddhists jumped on some reincarnation and whatnot, I just bounced back and forth, and you're right, they're all very similar. Everybody's got similar stories, and I just hijack one from the next.
They are.
And I'm just
They
glad I
build on
bumped
each
in you
other.
guys and had
They've
some
gotten
fun.
nicer, though. You know, it was
Well, so
pretty
far you
dim.
guys have been
Yeah.
pretty enlightening here, I have to say. I didn't realize you could have such an intelligent conversation with zombies, but you guys are doing pretty good here.
Oh, we have a caller. Let's see here. I'm looking. I don't know if he's on the line.
Yeah, no, we just have to read it today because it's hard for us to take
Right.
calls. It says,
right.
The caller is Matt. What do you atheists personally, I think that's what that's supposed to say, believe about an afterlife?
Someone wrote
Well,
something about this recently, but what were you going to say?
Well, I don't know if you zombies are atheists or not. Tell me what you found out.
Well, for me, I am an atheist zombie. I don't believe in afterlife, and I don't think I need an afterlife to have a nice life. I don't think I need an afterlife to enjoy my life and be useful to my society. I live my life to every day I wake up, I think what I'm going to do today, how I'm going to be useful to my society. I don't need to think like I'm going to die, I'm going to go to heaven, that's why I need to be good. I think I need to be good because I'm a decent human being. So for me, afterlife really doesn't mean anything. We came from Earth and we're going to go back to Earth. So
I guess I had the luxury of meeting a few gods myself, so I can't honestly say I'm an atheist anymore. But pinged around so many religions, and later on I'll discuss watching One of Us Humans in the Afterlife, just pounding on Jehovah, Christopher Hitchens. We'll get to that later, though.
Yeah, I think the different things have different, ideas associated with them. A lot of the afterlives are just basically a continuation of life, and while it's nice to think that you would live forever, I think that's why vampire stories are so popular as well as zombie stories. But I think you have to go with what you know for sure, and we know for sure that you're alive during the time you're alive, and you make the most of that. And if there's something afterwards, great. And if there's not, oh well. Live your life so that it's meaningful right now. And I think you pretty much can't go wrong. So.
Do you guys think it's arrogancy from us as humans that we need to think that yes, we're gonna live forever? That
I think it's terror.
we don't. It's terror.
Yeah, I think it's terror. It's the feeling that
Well, also there's we don't know.
If we don't go on, what happens?
Do you think that you can, that there's an afterlife maybe without a God? Why does it seem that people have to invoke a God in order to think they're going to live
And
forever?
it's like a primitive attempt to explain the I don't know question.
Yeah.
Matt called us back and had another question.
Yeah. So I think he's asking if we have anything to say about people who have had a near-death experience.
Okay. Well, on a serious note, now obviously I haven't. Well, you don't know this, but I don't think I've gone to heaven and all that good stuff or seen an afterlife. But when somebody tells me about it, an afterlife experience, well, you take it at face value. I'm not here to tell you whether you're right or wrong regarding your opinion, but I want to know what evidence you bring to the table for the claim. So, three things come to mind every time I hear the story about this. It's the same as anything I'm skeptical about, pretty much. If you have a personal testimony, that doesn't belong in me weighing your evidence. If you have an argument from empathy or some type of, I feel like this is true, it's still kind of a personal testimony issue. If you flag me with conspiracy, how could all these people who said they've had afterlife experiences, how could they all be wrong or right or whatever? Again, I want to know the evidence. These three things appear to be quite compelling to many, many, many people.
Well, and of course,
but do they have evidence?
Well,
and there's certainly no evidence for religion, because people who are of the Buddhist faith can have the same experience as someone who's of the Muslim faith, who's a Christian, who's a Jew,
Yeah.
who's an atheist, and they're doing some amazing research right now to where they're stimulating parts of the brain and also of examining the brain while these conditions are going on in animals and testing and things like that.
And we know now that our brain, it's like a byproduct of thinking, of imagining.
Yeah, that certain areas of the brain do light up, and, or in other words, become very active, which we had thought, oh, well, they're probably, if you're dying, your brain is going to become inactive. At the very last moments during death, it becomes super active. I think they've been doing experiments with animals, but the same areas of the brain that highlight the visual cortex in your brain light up. So yes, this bunny rabbit is also probably seeing, or this ape might be seeing a tunnel with light and things like that. And
how do we doubt the subjective experience? That's what I say. Just take it at face value. I believe that you saw that.
right.
Did it happen?
That doesn't mean that's what
we
you
want to
think
know.
it means.
It's not what you saw, it's what you've experienced.
Right.
Right, what you've
We're not
experienced.
talking
Yeah.
about afterlife
yeah.
experiences, we're talking about near-death experiences, where people seem to have very similar types of experiences. They see some light, maybe with a tunnel, perhaps they think there's somebody standing at the end. That's a very common experience.
Yeah.
And some people have hypothesized that it's due to oxygen deprivation in the brain. The brain doesn't die immediately, say if the heart stops. It will linger for a few seconds or something of that sort. And of course, there are a number of people who claim to have different near-death experiences, and some of them come out of it believing absolutely that there is an afterlife. But there are also many people who come through these near-death experiences without having seen this tunnel or this light or what have you. Those don't get reported.
Right.
Well, really quickly, that's right. And I also want to mention two books that are popular in the past. I got them on Amazon right here. 23 Minutes in Hell by Bill Weiss, and 90 Minutes in Heaven by Don Piper. And I do have something to say about people who make a lot of money when it comes to stories like this, and maybe they do genuinely think that they saw those things, but why can't any of us tell one of our stories about how, oh man, I had this dream, and sell this book? And at the end of it, I sit there and wonder, if you've hashed the conversation out as we have just now, what is unique about your story? It's as unique as it would be about a dream or anything else. And if you're cashing in on it, then I think you're a crook. I think you're a sham. So regarding those people, I have some negative feelings about them. But for Matt's question, I think what we're saying is that we take you mostly at face value, but we want to know what else you bring to the table for the claim.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe we ought to get back to Evan's explanation of afterlife here.
So I'm just gonna continue drawing some similarities between the Islamic and difference between the Islamic and the ancient Egyptian afterlife. So one thing actually I read, and that every person or every religion in its origin project heaven as what the people at this area were missing. So for example, Arabs, they lived in deserts where there is no plants, there is nothing. So they projected their heaven very materialistic. Whereas actually one difference between Arabs or Muslims and the Egyptians were very happy in Egypt at this point of time. They loved their country. They actually loved living by the river Nile. So actually they were sad that they were leaving Egypt and going to the afterlife. So for them, afterlife, the way they projected it as what's called field of reeds, which is basically another version of Egypt, which is exactly the same thing, but with no disease, with eternal life, with no sadness, but it's the same projection of the beautiful Egypt and the beautiful land that they were living in.
Well, if I extend your idea just slightly to another religion, say Christianity, and to certain parts of America where streets of gold is something people, I mean, is that what people are missing here? Streets of gold? And
Yeah.
I just want to point out how ridiculous this notion is. You know, how many times can you ride a wagon down a golden street and expect it to stay smooth? I'm curious. Like
It's pretty soft.
Yeah, it's malleable, right? I mean, this stuff's going to get all over you in your bodies. I mean, I don't think it's a nutrient. No, I don't think that'll work.
You wouldn't mind being covered in gold?
Didn't turn out so well
I've
for
been
that blonde
covered in
girl.
gold. I've been covered in gold paint before. That's a different topic. Not cool to air here, but. Yeah, I mean, just imagine streets of gold, blocks of gold. I mean, actually, this is a ridiculous idea.
Gold is one of the most mentioned words in the Bible, though.
It says actually in Islam, you live basically in a mansion that is built from gold and stones and silver, which brings to me a question, like, what is the meaning of this valuable, what we think it's a valuable element here on earth,
right,
up in heaven?
So gold is like it's a substance coming out of, if I'm not mistaken, it's not like the first stages of supernovas and stars, but like a later star, a secondary term.
All the heavier elements, heavier than iron, are made by neutron capture.
There we are.
Following supernovas. Yeah.
And so is this the plan to? I guess that is pretty precious, but as a building material, it's also.
So actually, I have a pretty philosophical question. So do you think if gold and silver is like everywhere in heaven, and I found a piece of scrap iron, wouldn't it be more precious than gold and silver?
Right, and you know what this reminds me of, if I may?
Well, if nothing has ever died, there's no diamonds at all.
Yeah. Diamonds are forever.
Because they're compressed from organic matter.
There was an episode of Inspector Gadget. I remember this clearly, where this Dr. Claw made weapons of evil, and they were like golden helicopters and stuff, but they couldn't fly. And it was like, it struck me as like, yeah, why would? And I remember I'm like 4 or 5, I don't know, watching this, on one of the TVs where you have to walk up and do the thing to, you know what I'm talking about?
Turn the actual channel.
Yeah. And it was Christmas time, and there was the old lights, the big ones that'll burn your house down. And here we are with another impractical material like those lights, but even worse, it's in the military budget. I guess it doesn't matter to those people, but they couldn't even fly. So I don't know. Now I'm just on a tangent about how ridiculous and anthropomorphic the afterlife and what humans want. They just put it there.
Yeah. So we've
Just
got
big
about
wish
25
fulfillment.
minutes left, and we want to take a program break here for a minute. In case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions. Shows are live most every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Community Access Television. Tell your out-of-town friends to see us streaming on ctvknox.org.
This is a call-in show, and we're live today, October 29th, 2013. And viewers can call in now to the number shown on the screen with a short comment or question. Call in now while we go to continue this informative break.
Right. The Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, meets 2 times a week. We have evening meetups for fun, food, drink, and conversation. ASK's purpose is to supply a venue for community, camaraderie, and outreach to atheists, agnostics, freethinkers, and other like-minded persons in East Tennessee. Our Tuesday meeting going on now at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria is in the Knoxville, in the Old City.
The Rationalists of East Tennessee have Sunday activities involving lively presentations and discussions of topics, topical and timeless. Once a month we get together for a book club. You need not have read the book to attend, but of course it helps. Visit rationalist.org or find us to find us. November's book is The God Argument, The Case Against Religion for Humanism by A.C. Grayling. Join us at Barnes & Noble Booksellers, 8029 Kingston Pike, 4 p.m. on November the 10th.
Okay, well, both the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee help provide a social outlet where you'll find that if you don't believe in God, you are welcome and you are not alone.
Indeed, you're not alone.
I have a
Okay.
lot of zombies with you.
Well, let's get back to hearing some of these zombies tell us about the afterlife a little bit.
So anyone is going to ask me about this feather here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
What is the curiosity, guys? All right. So, well, if you ask about the feathers, then we have to talk about judgment. In ancient Egyptians, basically, for you to be, for the person to go to the eternal life, they have first to go through what's called the Hall of Two Truths, which is basically where they stand in front of 45 gods, and then they have to do what's called negative confessions. So they have to say things like, I have not committed sin, I have not committed robbery with violence, I have not stolen, I have not slain men and women, I have not stolen grain, I have not polluted myself, I have not terrorized anyone, I have not been off. And actually, as you see, like, if you read all this 42 negative confessions that they have, it will be interesting because it actually summarizes all what we call human decency.
So,
And this is before any of the existing religion.
so do you have to say yes to all of these that you
Is that you have not done any of these, yes.
And
So
what if you've broken one?
then your heart is basically, you fail the test and your heart is going to be eaten. And
They eat your heart.
yes.
That's
So
It's a crocodile.
you know what?
They're hungry. They like heart.
It seems kind of cool. I'd
Its
kind of
name
like.
is Amit.
Yeah.
It's going to devour your...
Maybe you zombies can change your theme song to "You Gotta Have Heart."
I want to copy a Klingon ritual where if you saw that episode of Star Trek where Worf walked and they hit him with the pain sticks on his birthday, but it would be like, I have not carried away food. Oh, you know you have. Whoosh, you know. And,
We'll have to remember that.
but this is similar to me. I don't know. But this is what people
Yeah.
choose to.
Okay.
It's like the 42 commandments instead of
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
So-
we ought to take a little break here and return to Aris and talk about her trip to Valhalla.
Well, yeah, women weren't actually allowed in Valhalla. Again, it's a very segregated thing. There were some women who were given very, very nice funerals. And again, just like the Egyptians, you were buried with a lot of the grave goods that allowed you to live a nice life, including they would occasionally slaughter one of your slaves to go along with you. Because you needed servants in the afterlife as well. But the idea of Valhalla is just kind of this big party place. It's really not. It's more like basic training. There is some partying going on when you are not training, but you spend all day training because at least half of the warriors, and you have to be slain in battle. Again, it's very much the same idea as the Klingon idea. Yeah. Klingons
You gotta earn
and
your
Vikings
stake.
were
That's right.
very the worst thing you wanted to do was to grow old and die.
I get it now.
from that.
I get it now. Women distract the mind. This is a conversation happening today with women in the military. They go,
Yep.
oh, but they would distract you
Yeah.
from your training.
Yep, and
That sounds
Valhalla.
horrible. I would leave there too.
Exactly, Valhalla is the best of the best. Basically, are being trained for Ragnarok, which is the twilight of the gods. There's a great battle at the end of time, basically, or the end of the time of the gods. So that's what Valhalla is really about. And the only women who are there are the Valkyrie, who originally were goddesses who would actually devour your soul to begin with. So they're not actually the sexy vixens you see on some of these movies.
No, not like
But-
that heavy metal chick.
Yeah, no. It's not like that.
Actually, that actually brings a question to my mind. So, because I noticed this also, like in the Islamic heaven, it's more tailored toward guys.
It is. It's
yeah.
very.
So it's
very-
actually talking about the reward of the guys, which being with women, and
Strangely enough, I
But
think
virgins,
they,
yes.
And that is an awkward reward, if you ask me. I mean,
it is, and it's not just that. Actually, you're actually sitting down in your castle that I was just describing. The fruits are very close to you, so you don't have to move.
oh yeah, you don't want to like.
Yeah, just like comes right to you.
That's good.
And then you have wine, water, and milk served to you by young boys. And then you have your virgins. So I don't know where the women fits in this heaven really, because I didn't see anything that talks about women in the Islamic heaven.
And you're not allowed to drink while you're alive, right?
Yeah, you cannot
it's-
drink. No,
yeah.
it's a sin to drink while you're alive. But
Yeah, alcohol's
cool
not
then.
allowed. But once you're dead,
Yeah.
then it's okay.
once you're dead, it's fine. Yes.
You know, I guess the metabolism wouldn't function at that point. I'm getting all sciencey, and I know someone's going to
say,
say, "Ah, you naturalists, you're in here.
Worried about the liver
This
again.
is the supernatural." You know,
But-
the liver's indeed tied to the soul.
Yep, it's all about
If it exists.
protecting the liver and forgetting about the women. So, but yeah, in Valhalla is just the select, the few, the proud, the Valhalla people. But most people go, again, they have a bridge, and you have to be judged. And most people go into what is called Helheim, which is not actually related directly to the Christian version of hell. Hell was a black and blue goddess / giantess, and it means the hall of hell, and that's her name, Hel, and she, you know, again, it didn't sound like a bad place. She had a banquet hall, so if you were bad, you got to do, you know, kind of the scullery maid work probably, and women were actually allowed there, which was nice. So the Vikings were a little more equal. At least they mentioned the women having some place to go.
So what do you do there? What would you do?
You pretty much you live the same way
live more.
Yeah, you just continue on the same way.
And it
doing
is kind of
whatever it
trendy
is.
that you live more in yours as well.
Yeah.
Afterlife you're talking about, but it did disregard females to a degree.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Valhalla, I mean, in Helheim, there's also the idea of that there's multiple parts of your soul, which is very more similar to the Egyptians, in that one part of your soul continued on in this kind of eternal life, but other parts of your soul, for example, if like your grandchild or some other relative, a child was born and was named for you, then part of your soul,
A kind of reincarnation.
yeah, kind of reincarnation. There was a lot of ancestor worship as well, which is the other kind of predominant theme among all cultures, is the idea of veneration of the elders and veneration of the ancestors for good luck. And they actually, there's some doubt as to whether there's really any difference between elves and ancestors in ancient Viking lore. There's not a lot of written things because, of course, it's a very lush green place in Scandinavia as opposed to Egypt, which is very dry, which is excellent for preserving texts and written words, whereas a lot of the stuff in Viking culture is lost. They really had to carve it onto stone for it to have survived. So, but they've got that similar idea, the Ba and the Ka, different ideas about the soul being more than one part.
Yeah.
Do they have, you think of, did I get the impression that you say the soul can be fragmented?
Yeah, part of your soul was kind of moldering in the grave, and it was a very naturalistic idea that it was feeding, which it kind of comes back to some of the things that most of us believe, that the molecules that make up who I am will continue. I mean, that's part of biology, that, I will become part of the worm that eats me. I will become part of the dirt that my grave eventually turns into. And that was part of the Viking idea.
Yeah, and this is very similar. As I
living
said,
on through your-
so this is the Ka in ancient Egypt, which part of the soul that lived close to the body, and in ancient Egypt they put food with the deceased person. So this is the Ka fed on this, whereas the Ba basically represented as a head of a person and a body of a bird.
Okay.
It leaves and come back.
So did you guys follow? There was NPR had somebody on a little while ago that wrote a book about an atheistic type of afterlife. But what they were talking about was not. I mean, as soon as I say it, it's not afterlife at all. It's it's to get people in their car like, oh, what'd you say? And it's this idea that you carry on past, yourself. That, hey, you look just like your dad. Well, bam, there it is. Or anytime that we. You see carpenters working, and some of them use techniques that are extremely old, such as measuring 4 foot off one length and 3 off another, and then measuring the distance between the 2 points, and you get 5. Well, you've got a right angle. This is an old technique, but nowadays you get levels and stuff to use. And I actually don't know anything about it. But yeah, and lasers. But in a way, those people are carried on in us. And I'll take it a step further. I hadn't read the guy's book or anything. I actually don't know anything about it. I was intrigued by the idea. I mean, I played around with it in my head a bit while I was religious, and eventually eroded the religion portion, because this makes more sense. It's what it is. And when you see us walking around, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head on top, we have a body plan that goes back before us, and so these things that happen before us carry on. It's not. I want to say it is not an afterlife. It is not reincarnation. It's not immortality. It's just existing, and it's just what is. It's what we know, and that's as far as it goes.
It is really the obsession of human beings with being immortal, and you know what? They are trying to do this right now, but in the scientific way. So I was just looking at.
That's what this is.
So I was trying to look at some research. Actually, I was reading about it, and basically, there are two aspects. So one person is trying to create robotics, and he's from Japan. He's trying to create robots that actually represents your. It completely look exactly like your. It can
a movie about the surrogates.
There's Sheldon Cooper trying to make sure he's ready for his.
And then another person, basically, they are doing research where they actually can map the neural pathways. So basically, they take the brain, they chop it in very small pieces, like in less than micron pieces, and then they scan it, and then they collect all this together, and then at the end they are able to create the neural pathways.
Really quick, when you say they separate it and slice it into pieces, do you mean actually done?
Actually,
is this with a functional MRI scan or something?
No.
Okay,
So
this is someone that's done.
Yeah, someone is dead.
They're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm trying to.
What's your
basically, I am dead, and I'm trying to replicate my brain.
Yeah.
So be somebody like you. So well, John, what happened to you after you left the Sumerian underworld?
Oh, well, if you want to get on my story, I think we left it a while ago. But you know what? I was going to go on into detail, and I could jump back into the zombie mode. But I made my way towards the early Christians, or the middle early Christians. And the truth is just like when we see all these ideas recurring and themes over all these religions over and over, the same's true with Christianity. They're all there. I mean, we think about it. Out there in the ether, and when someone has a near-death experience, Matt called in and had the question, Matt, another way to answer you is, all these people have these experiences, and the reason that they all exist is because they all exist right here, and we are socially connected, and we just discuss them. So my character here, I was going to talk about seeing the 9 levels of hell and going to Dante's Inferno, and in that sense, it's all true in our minds. And just note some interesting points there, which are kind of plain at this point. But
well, where did the idea of hell as a place of fire come from?
Actually, I have no idea.
Not from Dante's Inferno, because the Satan rests in the inner circle of hell, the very inner circle, in a bath of cold, freezing water.
Right. He's halfway submerged, halfway down.
Yeah.
And he's there with traitors, I believe, right? In Dante's Inferno, it's all traitors. What's up?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, traitors. Yeah, that's a good spot for them. I mean, yeah, it's where they go.
It's the lowest of the scum.
And people that break their word in the nearest and dearest sense.
In.
I think most of us can kind of relate. But this idea of hell, I mean, it just seems to come from an idea of yin and yang, and they're all the same. This type, the evil must be punished and good must be rewarded, which we know.
There's no real idea of hell in Judaism.
Right.
No.
Yeah. There's nothing there.
And so, where did the Christians pick up on this?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I know Jesus was somewhat an apocalyptic prophet. So, actually, not even somewhat. I mean, he was. So.
Well, it's good. If you have the carrot, you have to have the stick too.
That is, yeah.
They already had the carrot, which was heaven, and Jewish heaven is kind of boring. It's mostly sitting around adoring God.
They're all
and of course it's a long way coming after that. But yeah, I think it's that you if you're selling something, and like I said, with a lot of these ancient things, it was great if you were rich. But your life on Earth was great if you were rich. So this was more selling to the masses. It was saying, hey, look, you've suffered and you've been poor and you've been a slave, you've been, oppressed, but it's okay, because once you're dead, everything is going to get so much better. So just suck it up and continue suffering. Jesus exhorts slaves of how to be faithful to their masters and obedient. Same thing with women. It's, hey, you're going to suffer, but it's okay, because all your suffering is geared up because you're earning credits in heaven.
But at the time of Jesus' life, Jews at that time, they believed in a resurrection, but they believed in a resurrection of the body right here on earth.
Yeah.
And that was going to be their eternal life.
Yeah.
So following from that, I guess, now we can criticize these ideas of heaven and afterlife. And as we all know, December 2011, Christopher Hitchens died, showed up in hell, and all hell was broken loose. He laid the Hitch slap, which I'll explain briefly here. This is described in the Urban Dictionary as the process of utterly obliterating an opponent's entire argument, usually political, religious, in one or more succinct or terse statements, orally or in writing. This powerful maneuver, named for the late, great Christopher Hitchens, has empowered free-thinking people in public discourse for years. And you've got a Hitch slap behind me right here. You're sitting here talking to Jehovah. What's he going to say? I can't possibly make myself sound the way Hitchens did, but you are the worst of the thought police. You just, right here, you watched and did nothing as your priest raped children, and your church protected those priests. And that if you believe in this idea that is contemporary now, this is what you have to accept that God's doing. And this is, we're going to hearken right back to the evil must be punished, good must be rewarded somehow, this yin and yang, this all coming together. And it's this wishing reality isn't the way it functions. And so we put it into heaven. This is what we want now. And I think this is what most contemporary Christians, moderates in the United States think. I don't know if this is getting into Islam in any way, but you want to see the bad punished. You want to see the good rewarded. It's hard to deal with it, and you just push it off into heaven and hell and these ideas of whatnot. And one more thing from Hitchens that I have here, which I really enjoyed, that Forrest took the time to write down. And this is after a person says that... this was specifically a response to Sean Hannity, but this idea that God watches over everything in this great way and takes care of all the bad people and good people, And Hitchens stated, "You give me the awful impression, I have to say it, of someone who hasn't read any of the arguments against your position ever. You want your God to take personal responsibility for the huge number of collapsing stars and imploding galaxies and destroyed universes and failed solar systems that have left us in this tiny corner on the one planet on this petty solar system that can support life on some of its surface for some of the time. You want a creator who filled this earth with species, 99% of which are now extinct already." It's remarkably wanting and lacking at the same time. It's so narrowly. If you look in the back, the only reason that religion exists on the planet is because of humans. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Animals, maybe we find that animals somehow added to the evolution of this, but I don't think that's. I have no idea. I have no expertise in anthropology and what would precede us. But maybe there's some evolutionary characteristics of the way that animals look at predator and prey, and those ideas float around in their heads. And once it got to us and we got this larger brain, I don't know, it came together. But
yeah, well, I think you're right in a lot of ways, and certainly I think Hitch's answer here to Hannity is pretty good. His buddy Bill O'Reilly there on the show. Bill was interviewed by Dave Silverstein, or he interviewed Dave Silverstein, and he didn't even know what caused the tides. O'Reilly didn't.
Tides come in, tides come out.
Yeah. So
must be
in
God.
your visit there of your heaven, where does this leave Jehovah's boy Jesus? Is he watching Hitchens too?
No, he's come a bit like us, it seems, and I mean that in the way that the public has driven it this way. The New Age Christianity is here, and he's just wandering around, You know, yin and yang. Everyone
Yeah.
love each other, and it's
Right.
driving the fundies
Well,
crazy.
Okay,
we are
we've
going to
come
have
to the
to
end
wrap up,
now,
so-
and
I think we're gonna miss
This,
that.
this has been the Freethought
we were gonna-
Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Please send us feedback. You can leave voicemail at 865-272-9060 or email us at